So our next panel discussion that's coming up is called Promoting Automation to Achieve New Levels of Productivity and Operational Excellence. And you've met our first panelist already. Chris, if I ask you to take a seat. Then we've got Victor Thobakgale, Technology Operation Leads at Africa Rainbow Minerals Limited. Please join us up on stage.
Thank you.
And then we've got Mariah Motsoeneng, Automation Platform Manager at Sasol. And the person heading up the moderation of this particular panel is Sihle Mthiyane, CIO NTP Radiostopes. So Sihle, let me hand over to you. And let's give them a warm round of applause as they make their way up on stage. Over to you, Sihle.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Am I audible? Okay. Now I know I'm audible. Good morning, everyone. And just want to introduce myself first. My name is Sihle Mthiyane, the Group CIO for Radiostopes, Pelindaba. What we are doing there, we are one of the 4 in the world that are into All right. Okay. NTP Radiostopes is a pharmaceutical organization that is into nuclear medicine. We are one of the 4 in the world that are producing what we are producing. And our product is mainly used for the treatment and the diagnosis of cancer. So for me, it's both a privilege and an honor to be part of this summit, and also to be part and to be in the midst of such great leaders and experts in the industry. I am going to be facilitating this session. Obviously, our topic is more about how do we promote automation in order to achieve new levels of productivity as well as operational excellence. And I believe that we can all agree in this summit that all manufacturers are actually always looking for ways to innovate, to reduce cost, to enhance productivity, and also to accelerate change, and also to optimize their operations. But I am so excited this morning that I am joined by such a wonderful panel with me to help me dissect this subject even further. I am just going to give over to my panel. Maybe I'll start off with Chris. I know we've already met him, but maybe Chris, if you can just introduce yourself, and maybe while you're introducing yourself, general take when it comes to automation in the manufacturing industry.
Yeah. Thanks, Sihle. I won't do too much of an introduction. I think automation is, it's such a big topic, and there's really two kinds of automation. One is industrial automation, robots, actual physical machines. And then you see software automation, RPA typically, on the other side. The world and industry has changed to automation first. So from a manufacturing perspective specifically, your world changes the moment a competitor opens a new manufacturing plant. Because everybody at the moment is looking at automation first, as much automation as possible. So the moment a competitor opens a new plant, your cost structure almost is under pressure. So automation is absolutely important, and will continue to drive manufacturing specifically, but also other industries into the future. I think automation per se, at the moment we're looking at automation that are dealing with human activities that are too simple for humans to actually handle. Intelligent automation will move to the space where these activities are too complex for humans to handle. And that's really that marriage between automation and AI. And it holds a lot of promise and a lot of excitement, but for us as humans also quite a bit of fear, I think. Thanks, Eve.
Thank you very much, Chris. And I think for me, as I was preparing for this session, One thing that stood out very strong in my mind is that there is no better time to be in IT than it is now. I mean, with a lot of learning, a lot of changes, a lot of evolution that is happening in the IT space, and I think it's a continuous learning environment in there. It's the fastest changing environment. Maybe just coming to you, Mr. Victor, if you can just introduce yourselves there, and then also give us just your general take when it comes to automation in the manufacturing industry.
Thank you very much. Good morning. My name is Victor Thobakgale, and I lead IT operations at African Rainbow Minerals. We are a mining company, and I lead IT operations across the multiple mines that are under us. Now, what I can firstly share is that I think the manufacturing industry as well as the mining industry, ironically, we actually face the same challenges. And, you know, with obviously COVID having hit us, the nervousness came in where, especially from the management and the leaders, how do we keep things running when we are no longer, in the plant, it was a nervous space to be in, and I think that sentiment is shared across manufacturing as well. And in terms of automation, I think we need to automate with intent, clear intent, purpose-driven, and lastly, automation needs to be data-driven. Data needs to tell the story. I'll share a little bit more as we go along. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Victor. And I'm just remembering one quote that I came across with when I was reading one of the books. And this person said, you can't do today's business using yesterday's methods and hoping to be in business tomorrow. Now, Sis Mariah, if you can just introduce yourself and give us your general take as well when it comes to automation in the manufacturing industry.
Certainly, Sihle, and thank you. I'm Mariah Motsoeneng. I am responsible for the automation platform at Sasol. Automation, for me, it's not an option, I don't think. In business, and as far as our customer demands are driving the way we do business today, we need to find better and simpler ways of doing things and freeing up people's capacity to focus on innovation. Yeah. So automation allows us to do that, and it's one of the reasons why for Sasol, automation is top priority in conjunction with digitalization, which Oratile was touching on earlier. So it's really not an option, as I said, it's something that we need to drive. That said, it needs to be sustainable and it needs to have people at the center of it all, because you cannot do it in isolation. There are challenges that it presents, of course, but it's up to us as industry, as government, as a society to manage those and ensure that it is done sustainably and it takes us to the next future.
Certainly, Ms. Mariah, because for me, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. I think this is something that is coming in like a cloud. You can't push the cloud back using your hands to say, I'm not going to do it. But again, coming to you, Chris, what problem are we resolving here? Are we doing this thing called automation for the sake of doing it because everybody is talking about it? What exactly are we addressing when we say we need to automate the manufacturing industry? What problem are we solving?
Well, I think on a very practical level, there's these two objectives. One is efficiency and the other one is cost. I think a lot of talk is going into the cost element, because remember, when we talk about cost, we talk about people. That is always, when you're involved in an automation project, is always a very difficult thing, because sometimes you drive out of a business and you wonder if the people driving behind you just lost their jobs. Well, the good news is, if one approach it in a right way, and I can perhaps mention what we did at Dimension Data. We currently well over 100 robots, RPA robots running in the business. And a couple of months ago, I spoke with the gent heading it up, and I said, so how many people did we lose? And he said 3. And I was surprised, and I said, only 3? And he said, yeah. And I said, they were obviously lower level people, quite admin. And he said, no, they were managers. And I said, why did we lose them? He said, they just didn't want to come along.
Okay.
So they left. And I think if you approach it the right way, there's many ways, and Mariah mentioned it, you can free up people from doing laborious tasks and really get them to operate to their potential. Because every human has got great potential, much more than laborious, simple admin tasks. But from there's a cost perspective, and then there's the efficiency perspective. And efficiency, I think that's where we should be focusing a lot of our attention, while we make sure that we look after the human element from a cost perspective, but there will be cost savings, and typically around 20%. I think if you look at software automation, you can easily save yourself 20%, but you have to do it responsibly. Efficiency, that's all about bringing AI and automation and data together.
Yeah. I think we'll have to come back to that one at a later stage, Chris, in terms of the role that is played by AI in this whole journey. But before we come back to that, Victor, are there any lessons that you took from the COVID-19 pandemic that are kind of giving us pressure to actually get into this journey as soon as yesterday?
Sure. Wow, what a loaded question. I think one of the most well-known challenge that currently exists, even beyond COVID, the COVID era that we've just been through, especially within the technology space, it has been the chipsets availability worldwide. I'm still yet to meet anyone, at least in the past 12 months, if not 18 months, who says they were able to order hardware and they would get it in a matter of weeks. We across, whether it's the screens, it's the laptops, it's the servers, the works. It's a big challenge. And I suppose the question there to ask is, how did we get to that point where our business is ready, to take a knock and absorb a major event such as COVID happening, and we still are able to operate the way that we would have been able to operate. And that's where one of the big lessons learned, and especially bringing back into automation, it's that ability to be able to draw a value tree of your own business. Be able to know, right, if these are the products that I am pushing out of my business, whether it's the mining, it's manufacturing, whether it's minerals that are coming from underground, what is the value tree? What are the inputs that we, and various touch points at different levels that result in the end product? And once you've drawn the value tree and you've visualized it, then you will be able to pick up where the bottlenecks are. How fast are we doing certain things? Are we buying raw materials fast enough? Are we paying our suppliers fast enough? Are we shipping our goods, fast enough in order to be able to meet the demand? Once we've got that picture in mind and you can visualize it and you can see it, then you start moving to a level whereby now you can make smart decisions, remove the bottlenecks, and be able to design and compose your business in such a way that it will be able to absorb the biggest shock, such as your COVID or the war or etc. or anything else that has come. I think that was one of the biggest lessons that came out of the COVID era. Just that ability to understand our business, from the top all the way down. And in terms of automation, where there are bottlenecks, those are your first perfect candidates to automate. Those are the different areas that you would identify for automation.
Well, thank you very much. And again, now coming to you, Sis Mariah, the question is then, where do we start? Because I'm looking at you now, particularly with organizations that have been running for some time. You'll find that there are legacy systems there that unfortunately have become the backbone of the organization. You can't upgrade them. You can't modernize them. Because again, it's more like changing the wheel on the car on full speed because there is no time to stop.
Yeah.
But at the same time, these legacy systems have become the backbone of the organization. And there comes Chris, Victor, and Sihle. They are saying, you must automate. But they, I mean, I can imagine, you have been running for 60 years, Sasol?
60 plus.
Probably there are systems that have been running there for over, I don't know, 45 years. Then where do we start?
That is a very interesting challenge, and really the concept of, start with what you have.
Okay.
Because oftentimes, as you've mentioned, these systems are your backbone of your business, and they're probably your differentiators, right? So you cannot just chuck them out. So from that stance, you need to have a clear legacy decomposition strategy, or application modernization, as we have named it, where you need to understand, back to what Victor was saying, your value mapping and where your customer touch points are. Because those are the type of things you want to preserve in that whole process, in the code, whether that be in your third-party applications, your business-critical applications that have been built on legacy infrastructure, or even your in-house developed apps, which you cannot upgrade, as you rightfully mentioned.
Sure.
So once you understand where those touch points are, by drawing up that value mapping, you can then start seeing opportunities of either data visualization, data containerization, or even rebuilding some of those critical components as microservices. Then you are in a position to, on top of that, then build on with automation, because as I said, it's not an option. But those type of data sets and those type of components actually make up your entire organization in this case. In our case, I mean, we've got a lot of those that have been operating for such a long time. So having that drive and initiating those type of activities in the organization has become one of the enablers for us to be able to automate.
Oh, I think that's a great answer. You start with what we have, and you do a proper assessment in your environment. You don't just wake up and come to the board and say, I want to change everything here.
Yeah.
All right. I saw your head was nodding when Mariah was speaking. Do you want to weigh in on that and maybe also add also the role of AI in this whole journey?
Yeah, I think AI is an area that holds so much promise, but for a large part up to now, it's not delivered on that promise.
Okay.
And I think if we look at the scope of AI, I mean, when we talk about AI, mostly we talk about machine learning. But advancements, you look at neural nets, deep learning, things like reinforcement learners. Reinforcement learner is an algorithm that can teach itself. And it will get to a point where it makes decisions that the developer cannot explain. Now, those are all very, very cool things, but I think we missed a step.
Yeah.
And the step that we missed, and we refer to it as transformational analytics, which really is about metric design. Because if we look in a world where a lot of things are transforming, the one thing we have not transformed is the way we measure things. And we're in desperate need for new measurements, because and when Mariah said let's start with what we have, I fully agree.
Yes.
But let's measure it, and let's come up with these measurements. And we do a lot of work in consumer analytics, and I always try and work it into the conversation when I meet with execs. I say, "How are your customers doing?" And the reaction is always a little bit of irritation, because why are you asking this? And then follows a lot of opinion. We have to get to a position where we can reduce these things to numbers. How are my customers doing? They're doing 6.2 out of 10. Yesterday was 6.3. I know I've dropped. I know why I've dropped, and I can go and fix that. One of the most important things, I think, post-COVID is, how are my employees doing? How can we be stuck in a world where employee satisfaction is something we do every 6 months and then wait 3 months for a result? That is just not good enough. We need to find new ways of measuring these kind of things. From a manufacturing perspective, how is your manufacturing plant doing right now? We know that there's a lot of data, there's a lot of numbers, but do we have one number that can say, well, it's actually quite healthy, there's no concerns, but I know what the number is and I can track that number over time. So I think AI, the potential is absolutely huge, and you talked about it's an exciting time to be in IT. it's an absolutely enormous time, because you can almost do anything you can dream up. But we have to go back a little bit and focus on the metrics, because I think that transformation to a large degree will be led by new metrics. Human behaviors try and perform to expectation, and expectation is a number. And many times, if you want to transform something, introduce a new and relevant metric and give it to your employees, and transformation will to a large degree happen automatically. So I think, to answer your question, it can almost do anything, but we missed a step. We have to go back to how do we measure things.
Yeah. Brother Victor,
Yeah.
are we ready as South Africa for this change? I mean, if you look at the legal framework where we have unions, I think that is some of the things that came up as well from the discussion that we were having earlier. If you're looking at the legal framework, you look at the academic framework. Are we from the academic space, are we getting the skill set that we need for now? I think I was talking to another summit, and they laughed at me when I said, when you go to other universities, you can actually go to the grave, rise back to life, a professor that died 30 years ago, and he can still go back to class and teach. But are we ready? Remember also, we've got this complexity of our internal resources. Are we getting rid of them? Are we ready? Are we ready for this change?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Interesting question. Maybe before I answer, maybe I need to ask: are the unions here?
I need to be safe.
I need to be safe. The simple answer is we are actually late.
Okay.
We are late. And especially us sitting here, both the mining industry as well as the manufacturing industry.
Yeah.
The stats show, whether it's your Gartner stats or your IDC, show that we are one of the least industries to pivot towards digital transformation. So we wait for everyone else. The banks have moved, and the tech industry has moved. We still, saying, should we not? But maybe that's also an advantage, because then we use the lessons learned from the other industries for us to do better. Anyways, just coming back to the question around the education and the skill set, etc. Ironically, one of the speakers that spoke here, or the panelists that spoke here earlier on, I had a discussion with about this with him, a few months back in Cape Town, and he heads up the Mandela Institution that's involved with various initiatives within the mining and the manufacturing space. And essentially, he actually told me, Victor, I actually have a mine that you can come, you can test whatever technology that you have, and you can come, and that mine is freely, it's there, it's free, it's available, and you can test it in a safe environment whereby it's not life impacting, and once you've tested and you've got a value case, then you've got a value case that you can take back to your business, and then it's a practical value case. And they do a lot of research as well. He mentioned this book about CSR and the work that they do together there. So there are avenues within the countries where, within our country where there's that opportunity to learn, and these new skills are slowly coming out. Some of the universities now are tailor-making their courses more towards digital transformation. So we are moving. However, we are moving at a very slow pace. And maybe I think we are still scared of this big giant called AI. Oh my God, the machines are coming to take our jobs and kill us. Yeah. The reality is that, no, that is not going to happen. I think let me pause here for a moment.
Well, thank you very much, sir. Sister Mariah, are we ready? Do you want to weigh in on that answer?
Look, I think it's a twofold answer. We are ready to move forward. I think we are ready to adopt.
Okay.
But whether we have the right foundation to do that, I think that is what industry, government, and everyone around the room, that's the problem we need to solve for. So we do know that automation brings about different challenges. There is skill sets that we need that we don't have. And I don't think, in my opinion, I could be wrong, don't shoot me, but I don't think our education system is supplying that at scale the way business needs it, right? So there's some work to be done there in terms of revisiting the curriculum, but also bringing our people along the automation journey. It starts with certain ideas or ideologies that we need to instill. First, understanding the value of automation. Going back to what Chris was sharing, why are we even doing this? And people need to feel they have a space in that whole journey. They need to understand what value they can add. And also comes the concept of digital fluency, right? So you've got digital literacy, obviously. I think all of us have that. You know how to operate your smartphone, you know, social media. But the skill sets that's required there is to be able to understand all these tools that Chris has around AI and ML and all the cloud applications, bringing all those together to provide solutions that actually support business performance. So those are some of skill sets that we will have to unfortunately build up from the ground and discover as we go along this journey. There's also an element of unlearning certain things. What has worked for us in the past does not work today, and we need to accept that. So I do think we are ready because we understand the problem, and we understand what we're solving for, and we understand the benefits that we'll get from it. But getting the people to come along that journey and actually accepting the change for what it is and not a threat, I think that's where the biggest challenge is going to be.
Oh, that's a very great insight. Chris, if we are ready, and I think I agree that we are ready, but is this for everyone? Because the reason why I'm asking this question, I have seen a couple of organizations who took this journey at some point in time, and then now, I don't have a word for it, they are now going, for the lack of a better word, I would call anti-digitalization project, whereby they went through this project, and they took this journey, they invested in it, but a few years down the line they realized our spreadsheets were working much better than this thing. Now we are going back. So, if we are ready, is this really for everyone, or maybe there is a step that we are missing along the way?
Yeah, I think it is for everyone, but there's a time question. In time, it will be for everyone. I think if you look at automation specifically, and as with every new technology, you go through and learnings. And we've seen that in some organization, automation have failed, and to the point that it's almost been cancelled. I think there's perhaps a couple of handfuls of companies that are getting it right. I know, Mariah, you guys are really doing a great job on that. But what has happened in the beginning, and it's typical that when you look at new technology, and robots specifically, people were focusing on cool robots rather than hard-working robots. Because in the end, a robot is just like an employee. You want the ones that really work quite hard. And I think a lot of companies got distracted by the mystique of new technology, rather than just keeping it very simple. In time, it is for everyone. Because, again, you go back to what are your competitors doing? Your competitors are not local anymore. Competitors are global. And if you look at automation and new technology and digitization, we have to look at what's happening internationally. Yeah. I was recently reading an article on Zara. Now, as you can see, I'm no expert in fashion, but Zara has taken the supply chain in fashion down to a month, where they produce stock for 1 week. They ship it worldwide, they see what works, they produce more of, what doesn't work, they just cull quite quickly. Now, that's an example of one industry that has changed everything from a fashion retailer perspective for everybody worldwide. And if you're still stuck on stock that you keep for a season, you're going to be out of business quite soon.
And then the other question that I'm just thinking about now is, I'm sure this thing comes with a price. Can we afford it? I'm sure that's a big elephant in the room. To say, we are talking about all of these things, but the moment you go out there to the service providers and you get your proposals, hey, work hard.
I can perhaps, service provider, that's us, so, so I'll have to defend that. I think that any new technology holds a couple of promises, and those must be your guiding principles that you work on. First of all is measurability. Going back to how do we measure things. Return on investment must be near term. We cannot be talking about years anymore. It's now mostly months, but sometimes it's weeks. So if it's not self-funding from a new technology perspective, don't do it.
If it's not self-funding.
Correct.
That's a good point, all right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Please continue. I was just emphasizing.
No,
if it's not self-funding.
I'll keep the rest of my defense for later.
All right. Can we afford this?
Well, I was actually hoping you're not going to ask me that question. Let Chris answer it. But look, I think the question of affordability in itself, it just mainly depends on how how you look at it. I would like to look at it from a value perspective. So if for example, we were to take the MVP approach, minimum viable product approach, right, where we say that instead of investing hundreds of millions onto this one big humongous project, let's break it down into smaller chunks. Let's quickly show value back to the business, and once we've demonstrated value with minimal spend, then we can, ask for more funding, and then eventually we can move to a point whereby the project itself is self-funding. Almost think about, the big task of let's say building a car. Instead of investing millions in building a Ferrari for your customer, right? You start with a skateboard, and then you show it back to the customer and say, right, does this meet your needs? And the customer said, no, I would actually like to sit on top of this thing. Then you go back, you redesign, then you introduce a seat, etc. As you go along, and what you may potentially get, as well as one of the byproducts or unintended consequences there, is that you may end up now starting to develop other byproducts that can be new value streams, as opposed to, over and above the original idea. Now you've got the cool kids that will say, no, we're happy with the skateboard, we'll take it, we'll start buying it in numbers, while you're also still on this big journey of developing a car. And then, the others would say, look, you are at a motorcycle stage, we're happy with the motorcycle, we'll buy it in numbers, so you start developing other products, byproducts as a result of that big project, and those other byproducts now start funding this big project. Eventually, you get to a point whereby now you can afford to build Ferraris in large numbers.
So in other words, Bravita, this must be a journey where you look at the low-hanging fruit. For instance, you look at your whole value chain, and then once you have studied your whole value chain, then you look at the processes that you can quickly, digitize in the process. So it should not be just a once-off thing, because you can't swallow an elephant.
100%. And just think about this as an audience, right? If we look at, we traditionally know Netflix as a company where, where we can subscribe and we can watch, movies there. But Netflix actually started as a DVD distribution company. Guys in scooters driving around, renting out DVDs. Transformed itself into a digital platform where you can get videos on demand. Today, they are no longer a movie distribution company, they are a movie making company. That's what automation and digital transformation does to your company. You may even end up at a space where you never thought you would be.
Well, that's a very good insight. So, Mariah, can we afford this?
I think the question should be, can we afford not to? Look, it does come at a hefty cost. I think we can all appreciate that. And again, going back to value, we need to be very clear. Not everything that can be automated should be automated. I think that's another principle that needs to be adopted for you to have a successful journey. So understanding where you will extract the most value before you even touch automation and say, I'm going to buy an AI application or I'm going to invest in this type of other automation tool. So we need to look at it from a value perspective, but also be realistic and appreciate the opportunities that it also presents, right? Because with with automation comes new skill sets that we can potentially build up. What we've done is invest in citizen development as a company to ensure that we repurpose some of that capacity that is freed up by automation for our people to start doing different things. And the innovation that comes of that goes back to the value stream. So you are reaping your rewards as you go along the journey. But as I said, you need to be very clear in what it is that you want to automate, and not everything should be automated.
Not everything should be automated. Wow, that's a good insight. And I think we are pretty much doing very well with time. Maybe if we can just have our closing remarks, maybe starting from you, Chris, just for 60 seconds, say, just to give us your closing remarks.
I think from a closing perspective, we've got a significant imbalance from a skill perspective. And the imbalance is practically very visible. For anybody who wants to employ staff in data, AI, BI, automation, you'll know how difficult it is. These skills are not available. We at the moment are employing and contracting overseas to find these skills. That's on the demand side. On the supply side, we know that we can take reasonably intelligent people, currently unemployed, within 1 year we can teach them the skills to fulfill on these tasks. But for some reason we're not doing that as industry. I mean, we can take people from being unemployed to having such a scarce skills that they can demand a very significant salary in 1 year. There's more than enough supply, there's massive demand, and that demand is just increasing with the brain drain. You know, we talk about the great resignation as if it's a drought. You know, it's something that is happening and we can't do anything about it. Besides, in new technology, it's not only the great resignation, it's also the resignation of the great. Because these people are really talented. We've got the supply, we've got massive demand. All we need to do is fill a year. There's a year in the middle we need to fill. And I think if industry and government can come up with a plan to just fill in that year, the impact will be absolutely enormous. We will have the skills that industry is demanding and that new technology is demanding, and from a social perspective, the impact will be enormous.
Well, certainly. Thank you very much, Chris. Thank you very much. Prophet, closing remarks.
Yeah. I think overall this morning there's been a lot of technologies discussed, your blockchain, automation, artificial intelligence, etc. Look, overall, if we embrace and enhance the power of these technologies, we would be able to actually even reach greater heights than we currently, where we currently are. Let me just give a quick example. Say if a wheels or a wheels manufacturing company would be able to, in real time, be able to see how their wheels are performing on the real road, real South African road with pools on the roads and rivers on the roads. I don't call them potholes anymore, but in real time. Get that data, feed it back into the manufacturing plant to impact how the next product is being manufactured. Now, to Chris's remark earlier on, whoever makes the fastest decision will win. The first company that will be able to do that, use that data across that value chain and impact the next product, I can almost guarantee you that will be a company that will take over the industry in the country, just as an example.
Oh, thank you very much, Patrice.
Victor.
Closing remarks?
Yeah, I think our only limitation is our imagination. With the recent stats that came out, with 60% of Africa's population being under the age of 25, we're actually sitting on a honeypot of talent, of smart people that we are not fully utilizing. So as industry, we've got a responsibility together with government to enhance and uplift these people. And it's really, like I said, the limit is our imagination. There is a shortage of skill in these areas that we talk about. It is very difficult to get skilled people, but it's also not very difficult skill. Yeah. So there is a challenge here that if we don't address it, we will lose the skills that we have to other countries, if not overseas, and really we will not be able to solve the African problem, which is unemployment.
No, certainly. I just want to thank all of my panelists for this wonderful insight that we have had and this wonderful discussion. And I think what we need to take away from this is that it's not everything that can be automated. And I think it's important that we understand that. And obviously, it has to show value for your business. Because remember, as the head of that function, you still need to demonstrate the return on investment to the business. So you have a lot of work to do. So it's not just about being excited about this innovation and this particular space we're moving in, but it has to add value in the organization. I've always been an advocate of the point that it is important that we do not just get excited by the technology, but we must understand our business. You must understand your business because it's not everything that is out there in the market that is good, that is suitable for your business. And again, I think it's just a matter of embracing it. Let us embrace it. And there are more benefits on it than disadvantages. So with those few words, I just want to thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, my panelists. And have a very good day. Thank you.
Thank you.